Good morning. Hi, everyone. This is Saturday Morning Coffee. My name is Tiffany Linderman. We have Lance McKinnon, and we have our very special guest today, Kevin Ressler, who has his hands in so many things trying to help and impact our communities across Lancaster County. And honestly, the ripples go out from there. He works through the United Way and Meals on Wheels, and I actually think we would go back from school. But ultimately, I've had the pleasure of working with him in the recent years, and our paths have crossed between Meals on Wheels and a little bit of what I do on a day-to-day basis. But today, I'm really excited because we're going to get real, unfiltered conversation just to talk about what is going on in life, what's going on with you, and, just being real and getting down to it. So, Kevin, I would love to have you kind of give a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pour what we call special water in my house because I don't drink coffee. And I hope that you'll find that funny by the end of this conversation. So I have two daughters, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. And, sparkling water is called special water here.
I like the idea, Kevin. I like the idea.
Well, you got to let them get a treat, right? Because otherwise they're going to want soda. But no, you don't want soda. Soda's what everybody else drinks. You get special water.
Oh, that's the good stuff.
It gives me something fizzy and whatever, but I have more energy than most anybody I know, so I stay away from caffeine. I'm kind of full. Most of the time, people I work with, as well as my family, are like, yeah, no, not allowed to have coffee. Caffeine to me is a drug to be abused when I need to stay up all night, as opposed to just every part of the night, but the 4 hours I normally sleep. So, I have, like I mentioned, 2 daughters. I'm married to Melissa. Melissa works at the Lancaster Downtowners. Yeah, so my day job, what pays me is I'm the president and CEO of United Way of Lancaster County. Make your donations today and tomorrow and the day after. Right now, we're running a really cool donation opportunity where people are giving money. It was inspired by individuals who said that they were getting more money than they needed from the stimulus check. They hadn't lost a job. And they were like, I've got neighbors who are out of work. I don't know how to give to them. Is there a place that we can give where the money goes directly to people? Not a program, just literally the money goes in their pocket. So we created Project SOS, and that's an opportunity. So share our stimulus. It's fun, but plays on the SOS, save our ship thing. And so the idea is literally we got sponsors to cover the admin fee for my staff to do what my staff needs to be paid to do. And so if you give us $500 goes right to a family. $250 goes to individuals in need right now because of COVID loss, financial losses. And then if you give less than that, that's fine. That gets pooled with somebody else's 25 and 25 and 25. But yeah, we're giving cash grants of $500 and $250 to neighbors in Lancaster County here that need help. We've already raised about $150,000, and we still have another about 50 to go before we open applications back up. We had so many applications, we had to shut it down as we fundraise and hope to continue to serve the community in that way. Then, as Tiffany mentioned, I do some other things. I'm board chair for Meals on Wheels, where I worked at for 5 years before I joined United Way last January. Incoming board chair for Everence Federal Credit Union, which is a national credit union. And then I'm also on the board of Landis Quality Living, which works to try to find affordable housing for seniors as part of the Landis Communities Network, which is like Landis Homes, which is what's called a CCRC, think retirement home. And trying to figure out how to expand the ways in which we can support that. I also serve on the board of Conestoga Valley Education Foundation, trying to find innovative, scalable ideas within that school district that can be launched further. And then I'm on the board of UPMC Lidditz, which is a hospital system here. It's part of the larger UPMC network. And I'm on the board of the Lanco My Home, which is the homelessness coalition that operates here with a variety of organizations to make sure that there's some really efficient work that goes into how they manage those dollars in the community. And then I'm on the board of Partnership for Public Health. Partnership for Public Health is pushing for a public health department in Lancaster County, has been for about 15 years, because Lancaster, even as large as it is, doesn't have a public health department, a county run one. So we don't get data from the state. We have to wait sometimes 2 years for things like where lead exposure is happening. Well, when a kid has more than a grain of salt worth of lead exposure in them, they are 7 times more, they have a 7% increase in being incarcerated later on in their life. And so when you wait 2 years to get the data to know how to respond, it's too late. So, we need to have that kind of information coordinated effort that isn't prioritized on hospital and health systems as own priorities of staffing and expertise, but says this is what the community needs, thinking about it from an equitable perspective. And the last thing I tend to do in this community is I try to do a lot of various advocacy. I've always said it's important to be in the streets and protesting, and that's the street protest, but there's also the importance of serving on boards, because that's the back room advocacy. And so we need to both pressure the systems and then rebuild the systems. And so, everything from Black Lives Matter to LGBTQ rights to those things, right now talking about the Asian hate and the concerns that's going on there, and making sure that there's a voice in the community, because the systems of power are not going to look at how they disrupt themselves. And so they need to be pressured in all walks of life. So I have my master's of divinity, and I worked in the past as a pastor. I still preach sometimes. But pressuring our churches and our faith institutions to remember who they are from a moral perspective, because they've forgotten that, and instead are often leading the hate instead of pushing against the hate and getting them to push against systems and be those edge pushers.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, first of all, I want to commend you on everything that you are doing. I mean, you are definitely making a huge impact on many people's lives.
Well, I mean, we all do. I just
We all do. We all do. I understand why you
talk about it on a resume, but I just posted on Facebook the other day. My next door neighbor, she doesn't have a title. She's staying at home with her kid, raising her kid. But she went out and joined the amazing Neighborhood Leaders Academy the city of Lancaster puts on, and she was given an opportunity to get a vaccine link out to members of the neighborhood for the city. And, they didn't want them to pass the link out. Some people didn't do anything because they couldn't pass the link out. Well, she took her laptop and walked around the neighborhood, knocked on doors, particularly elderly individuals with language barriers. And she was signing them up. And if they didn't have Wi-Fi, she told them to come to her house later. She sat on the porch, socially distanced, and signed people up. I mean, she saved lives that day by being willing to just go out and invite people in. That's heroic. It's more than a lot of the stuff I do. She doesn't get the title. How many people are out there making monumental impacts? They don't get the newspaper headline I do or whatever, which is unfortunate. But I think we need to realize that the reality is that everybody has 24 hours a day.
Yes.
Nobody gets more, nobody gets less. And what you do with that has the opportunity to be transformative for the world locally and globally beyond ways that you'll ever even know.
Oh, absolutely. It's every day you should be making an impact or try. I mean, there's always an opportunity, whether it's a hello, a smile, there's always somebody in need of something,
Yep.
and everything is going on. We have to be selfless and put others before ourselves, in a society. And sometimes society has changed, you're upset, confused, and we've all been through something that we've never experienced in our entire lives.
Absolutely.
So nobody was planned for this, so everybody's just kind of winging it and going with it. But you hit the nail right on the head, though. Within those 24 hours, I feel like it's my obligation, not my obligation. It's just like God has gifted me to say, hey, Lance, I don't care what you're going through, but go out and help somebody else.
Right.
Today.
Well, think about it. I was thinking about it this way, right? So I competed and won a race. The first race I ever won was being born, because me and 400 million other sperms were chasing that ovary, right? we were looking to be that embryo, right? And so I have an opportunity that 400 million other possibilities didn't get.
Yeah.
Don't screw that up. Like, leave it better than you came. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard. But have a sense of understanding of both the obligation, and if you are a person who believes in some sense of moral or spiritual well-being, you have a moral spiritual obligation.
Yeah.
Are you not waste it? Don't waste it.
Are you finding that people I think sometimes people feel like I want to do something, but I don't know what to do, and then they just don't do anything,
right?
And then it gets wasted. And I think that I know Tiffany and I talk about that all the time. It's like how many people have stacks of notes of things that they want to do and help people sitting on their desk at home, nightstands, and little notebooks, and never do them.
Well, because we think about the end instead of the beginning. So we say, man, I want to have this big change,
Yep.
but I don't know how to get there. And so they don't proceed because they're like, well, I got to plan more. I got to save more. And then it becomes this right capitalistic stack. I got to gather. Right. One of the things that always bothers me as a phrase, and I'm a fundraiser, so this is part of what I actually am asking people to do, but is this phrase of, oh, I always wanted to give back, or I'm so glad to give back. Well, why'd you take so much to begin with? Like, why? I like to think about things because I like food. So I like to think about it in terms of like a table, right? And I'm a pastor, so think about tables and food and all that stuff. And I'm like, sometimes the way our system is structured and what drives us to believe we have to accumulate first, it's like you had a table. Imagine you got a table with 12 people, and one, maybe two people sit there, and before anybody else does anything, they take all the food and put it on their plates. All the food.
All the food.
And they eat while everybody watches. And they eat until they're physically uncomfortable. Then they take their plate and they scrape it back in the middle and they say, oh, look how generous I've given you so much to share.
Yes.
You just gave me your spittle. I don't want to eat your spittle. Like, why couldn't we share this to begin with? And so I think that this sense of accumulation so that you can be a philanthropist, right? Like, give $1. And I mean this, give $1 to the homeless person on the street. And I know they say give to organizations, and that's what I'm supposed to say. But you know what? I've never had to ask someone for $1. I've never in my life had to ask someone for $1. And maybe they will go buy cigarettes or a lottery ticket or booze with it. I don't know. Let's also find ways to support them institutionally. But it's okay to literally do something as small as handing someone $1. Pick up a trash. You can't say there's nothing to do, because I know that there's a cigarette butt or an empty Newport pack probably sitting on your front stoop. There, there's a bag of chips, there's a McDonald's bag, whether it's your trash or someone else's. Pick that up. You're literally saving the world. You're literally saving the world.
Yeah.
Pick up trash. And I think about it this way. If today everybody in the world picked up one piece of trash, we just picked up 8 billion pieces of trash.
Absolutely.
By doing one small thing, make that kind of impact.
Yeah. And I'm going to kind of go back to, you hit on something about homeless. I'm really big on homeless and feeding the community and food pantries. And, I'm working with a young group in inner city Maryland right now called U-Help. We're 27 days out from doing a huge youth service day, where we're doing hygiene bags, non-perishables, perishables, clothing, whatever it may be. And when people think about homeless, and it's a stigma, is that people tend to forget they weren't always homeless.
Right.
They had a home at one time, and then they got there, So don't think that you're better than them, but they have a story. We all have a story. And something could have been a death, lost a job, income, mental illness, whatever it may be, but they have a story. They didn't choose that. That's just where they got. So that's where, like, for me, I find a lot of passion is like, I want to help them. I want to help that community. Right. Because a lot of people say, oh, I have this, and why would I give him $1, like you said, so he can go do a cigarette and something like that. But you're also helping. You also remember, we've all been at one time that one step away from being that person, and people tend to forget that. But at one time, I mean, everybody's been that one step away, and that's huge.
Absolutely. Hop in here, Tiff.
I was just going to say, no, thank you. I was just going to say that, I think we assume too much. We've seen things, we read the news, and we assume that there's a story behind any person that isn't even true, right? And that kills me to think that we're not helping people because we assume something, right? I love that there's these organizations like you have, Lance, and that you're doing, Kevin, and like you said, ultimately it's the simple things. I worked in Philly over the last year for several months, and I always had food in my car. When I would go and stop by, I would be at a stoplight, they're waiting. And, if there's somebody that can give them something, and I felt so horrible. They'd be sitting out there for hours or standing out there for hours in the heat and just like, can somebody help me? And I'm like, I just giving them, whether it's an apple or a bag of food or something, is making a difference. And it doesn't need to be this epic thing that's going to change their lives. If you have the means to do that, that's phenomenal. But if you can help them get through a moment of their day or a week, is going to make a huge impact. And that's why we always have to keep trying. So
Yeah,
you made a great point too. And, and Kevin, I have my religious background too, and, sometimes we don't have to give them something. We can stop and pray with them.
Well, and even, thanks. One of the things that's been powerful for me is just stopping and asking them what their name is. Sit for a conversation. I used to go to Penn Square here in the center of Lancaster. And, I know a couple of people now, Michelle, every time I'm down there, I say, hey, Michelle, if I've got an extra 5 minutes, and I always have an extra 5 minutes, right? Like we pretend like we don't, sit there, how you been? What's been going on? And yeah, Tiffany, when I used to work in Oakland, California, a long time ago, when I was right out of college, I was doing a year of AmeriCorps, or basically a volunteer. It was like AmeriCorps. It's midnight voluntary service. I got paid $50 a month. I didn't have any money, but I had my food budget, whatever. And yeah, I'd have Chewy bars. And I used to pass this one person every day, and I just sit down and give them a Chewy bar and eat my apple on my way to work. It was really simple. It did not cost me, Chewy bars 25 cents, right? Yeah. But there's weight, and yeah, Lance, these are human beings, right? They're not categories. Now, and I want you to think about this, right? One thing is that we not just stigmatize, but we, like you said, Tiffany, we assume.
Yeah.
And a lot of homeless individuals are not on the streets in the urban environments. They're sleeping on someone's couch. Whether it's a related person or not, there's homelessness in rural communities. We need to be honest with ourselves that the varied stories of people who are homeless or otherwise, people who are challenged right now in their circumstances are as unique and as varied as there are people who are suffering from challenged circumstances. And I want you to just don't even say it out loud, but imagine for yourself, like what's the most embarrassing thing that you can remember that ever happened to you, right? Like, so all you listeners and like, you got it in your mind already. Like, what's the most embarrassing thing, right? Now imagine that everybody led every time they introduce you to someone. Tiffany, she's the one who, Lance, he's the one who, right? Now imagine not only that, now imagine that story is now somebody else's introduction. And it's not even that story. So that's what you have with some of these challenged populations, Tiffany, right? Like this is what you're talking about, right? Like, so now everybody's assuming that you are addicted to drugs, that you, were an alcoholic, you were abused, all these things, because they heard that someone who was homeless had that story, and now everyone has that story. So now imagine not just having to be introduced by your own most embarrassing moment. Now imagine being introduced by somebody else's most embarrassing moment, and that everybody is saying that that is your identity and who you are, and that you chose to do this and that and the other thing. The lack of human just compassion that we treat one another with is frankly sometimes disturbing. It is balanced by the human generosity, but we've got to figure out better ways of beginning by saying, hi, I'm Kevin.
Yeah.
Tell me about you.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you about you. I'm going to tell you why you're there. No, you tell me about you.
Yeah, because the biggest gift that we can give somebody is our time.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's the biggest gift is our time.
Can't get it back. Can't accumulate it at a faster pace later on. Every moment that you have is a moment you'll never get again.
Yeah.
I can make more money. I can take a different job. I can have good investments. If I was low resource last year, I might be able to be high resource this year, but I will never, ever, ever be 35 years old again. I'm 36 now, right? I'm almost 37. I'll never, ever, ever have that first part of that life again. That's gone. What I did is set in stone and cannot be undone. What I didn't do is set in stone and cannot be done.
But I love how you talked about
it can accumulate an opportunity. Yeah.
I was going to say, I love how you talked about just taking those moments, because the way you described it, or not even you're describing it, I think that's the day-to-day is, I think people that are homeless, there's almost this like invisibility, like they're ignored. You just drive by them or you walk past them, and the fact that you're taking a moment to stop and say hello, I'm sure you're busy, you have a place to be, but you taking that time, whether it's 5 minutes or a minute or 10 minutes, who knows, that is huge, as you just talked about. And I honestly, you're giving me a nugget to take away from this, because I think I get sucked into oh, I need to do this, I need to get here. And I'm always feeling this like pressure of being late. When in the end of it, I'm passing so many people that are in need, whether they're homeless or just suffering from something, right?
So what Lance said earlier is super important about just the fact that like you can smile at someone and transform their whole day. You don't know who's struggling today. You don't know who's got mental health challenges. They might be suicidal. They might be homicidal. And you're smiling and saying hi is the thing that today keeps them from being one of those people like yesterday, that guy at the Capitol who drove into a Capitol police officer, and hopped out with a knife. Someone earlier in his day just saying, how you doing, might have kept him from doing that day. He might have done it tomorrow, but if everybody every day says, how you doing? And he at some point reaches a point of vulnerability where he's willing to sit down with someone and say, I'm struggling. And they're the right person at the right time. That might save that tragic incident. Might not, we never know, but it's worth trying. And the fact that you can do these kinds of things with a smile, a hello, hey, I like your coat. That's a really cool coat. Where can I get a coat like that? That kind of stuff is transformative. And the fact that we're just not willing when walking down street to look at someone who's passing by and smile and nod is stunning. We're looking away from people, that we're looking down, we're frowning. It doesn't cost you a thing to just nod and acknowledge, I have passed you. You have been a part of my human journey. There is no way that the rest of my life can exist without you having been in it. And be able to just acknowledge people, right? Because we've talked a lot about homelessness, but it's all sorts of things. And in COVID, you talk about COVID. In COVID, everybody's suffering from some level of mental stress. I don't care who you are, and I don't care how well you're handling it. This is not normal as we've known it. And so being willing to and we don't get to give hugs and handshakes anymore. So just being willing to be able to say, hey, how you doing? Is it?
And this is something we've talked about on previous shows. It's like we carry that invisible backpack. Everybody's carrying that invisible backpack. I don't care if you live in whatever size house, apartment, living on the couch, the street. This past year, we're all carrying baggage. We all have something, and we put on this face like, oh, everything is great. And my life is wonderful, but we're all in that struggle. We're busy, but we're carrying things with us, and I think people need to really be real again, start having real conversations, especially in this past year. We brought up homelessness, people who were living in houses, lives change. You go from 2 incomes to 1 income. You go to no incomes, so it's really unprecedented, but we're all carrying weight, and we should start caring about each other and giving each other that time, because we've all gone through something. And if you can sit here today, or anybody can come up and tell me and say this last year has not impacted them, I would probably take my coffee cup and walk away, because again, I think you mentioned it earlier, it's not going to be a conversation that's going to be true or real.
Not going to be true. The most profound thing I think I've ever thought in my entire life, I was in middle school and we had an assignment. We were supposed to create a utopia. And I was trying to create it was going to be an island, and we were going to get rid of these people and get rid of those people and bring in these people. And all of a sudden I realized, wait, that doesn't make sense, because people are going to constantly say, you're the problem, you're the problem, you're the problem. Someone's always going to keep getting cut out. And I realized, and what I ended up putting for the assignment was that the way to get to a utopia is to actually not center yourself. So if there's 8 billion people and I don't care about myself, I'm the only person I don't care about, and everybody else does that too, that goes from being me looking out for number one and being the only one to do so, to having 8 billion minus 1 people in my corner and 8 billion minus 1 people in everybody else's corner. When we stop focusing just on us and start focusing on everyone but us, and the whole world can do that in unison, you have billions and billions of people whose primary concern is you.
Yeah. And I use a great acronym for that called JOY. Jesus, others, yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, don't put yourself first. It feels so wrong and counterintuitive. But if we could create a society that understood the common good is more important than the individual's good, we would be better off for it. No questions asked.
Oh, absolutely. And we need to start getting back to that point because it's declined. We can all agree it's declined. The generosity that you see, especially coming out of the pandemic, people are moving around, a little grumpy, yes, but you can see it declining. We have to be the change. It has to start with us.
Mm-hmm.
It has to start with you, the individual.
Right.
If you want to see, you want to be happy, you got to make somebody else happy.
Right. It can't, I'm going to wait. That's a great idea. I'll wait until someone else does it first, then I'll do it. Well, if everybody says that, no one's going to do it first.
Yeah, exactly. That's like giving a donation. I have all these ideas. If I don't go with it, it's just wasted.
Right. I mean, there's always an organization doing something that you don't have the time to do. You mentioned that giving your time is so valuable earlier, right? But if I don't have time, that's where organizations, right? I serve on a lot of boards, as I mentioned at the beginning. I work for organizations, and they're incredibly important because we change the systems of support. So I mentioned, you don't beat yourself up if you give someone $1. That's not the only place you should be giving either, right? Someone's immediate challenge and pain is important to see. But also it's important to understand that we've got systems and structures that are putting people by design in those places. And we need to support those institutional structures and individuals in power who are saying, nope, not good enough, going to change that. And we need to support those places because we don't have enough time. I mean, I work in nonprofits and it's not enough. We donate to other ones as well, because it's important for us to be thinking about that. And if you don't have time, if you don't have money, but you do have time, volunteer. Even during COVID, are you good at social media? Help someone with their social media graphics, whatever the case may be. There's something for you in community to make community stronger.
Yeah, and I'm a true believer, and we're running out of time, so I'm going to kind of bring through this out there, is that you said that helping somebody, I believe, and you're doing a lot in the development of the adult world, but we also have to start pouring into the youth, the next generation, and helping them cope. And I think that could bring on a whole nother sit down Saturday morning conversation, and I can see us having that in the future, but we got to pour into the youth, to help educate them to be able to serve and to give and to be the change.
Yep.
Because they're our future. They're the ones who are going to be taking care of us. I'm not going to tell you my age, but all right. I'm not, but we have to pour into them because they're the ones, we want to leave a legacy behind. If we're not giving back, we're not going to move forward.
And that's building habits. And that's where you can influence new ideas, social movements, and awareness, because they're at the time of their life when they're impressionable. And if all they're going to do is learn the way we are doing things now, then we're not going to get into a better place. They dream. I studied theater in college. The arts are hugely important to me because we learn to dream. Don't just tell me how to build the machine. Tell me how to build a new machine.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kevin, I know it's Saturday and it's holiday weekend, and I've enjoyed our Saturday morning coffee.
Thank you.
Epic. It was epic.
You are making a difference in this world today. I know you're going to make a difference in the world tomorrow. You're going to keep continuously impacting people. And I think it's more and more of that. Contagious people like you. I've taken away a lot of nuggets from this. And I look forward to our next Saturday session.
Me too.
And I'm going to get some special water for that.
Get some special water. Hey, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks to all you out there listening. And again, a reminder, I don't have any more hours in the day than you do. You can do as much or more than I can. And thank you for whatever it is that you are able to do, whether that's tending your family, tending the community garden, or tending your community. I just appreciate the fact that we all have the same opportunity to make positive impacts.
All right, Bill, thank you very much. And we look forward to talking to you more and working with you, and we'll get the word out. And
Take
keep
care.
making a difference, Kevin.
Thank you. You too.